Yeah, man, the reason that I kind of wanted to do the interview was, I knew about you from Nails and everything. And then actually I kind of learned about the Twitching Tongues album recently and then the studio and all that. So I was like, this guy's got a lot going on, pretty interesting. So I guess, how
That's
many
awesome.
yeah, man, and how many bands are you in? It seems like you're in like a ton of bands when I started looking into it.
Technically, like five, but really, like only the main two do stuff often.
Okay. Yeah, because I know,
Yeah.
Nails and Twitching Tongues, obviously the biggest ones you've got. What can you just name off the other ones real quick?
I play guitar in a band called the Midnight Suns with my brother, and then I front a band called Disgrace, and then I have this new thing called Eyes of the Lord with the original singer of 100 Demons.
Wow. So, and because I checked a few of them out, they sound kind of within that hardcore realm and everything. Why,
Yeah, most of them.
why so many bands for you?
They all just kind of fill a different void,
Mm-hmm.
Fronting a band is a certain experience, and like the guys who write the music in that band, they do their thing, and that's kind of their outlet for that. And I'll write lyrics and stuff, and that's just a different feeling. And then I have the Midnight Suns, where it's kind of just it's mostly inspired by like New York hardcore and like Detroit and like Japanese stuff, and it's just kind of writing different styles of stuff within certain, I wouldn't call it boundaries, but like a certain vibe that one of the other bands maybe shouldn't or couldn't do.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. So, going off that a little bit, you mentioned how you do the vocals. You play drums and Nails. You've got the guitar in Twitching Tongues. So, what's the main instrument, and how did you come to play, and be so experienced and be able to pull off all of these in each band?
Well, the first thing I learned was drums, and I just kind of picked it up. My parents are musicians, and there was just always gear laying around. And so I just kind of picked up everything and, played what I wanted to play. And I grew up in Connecticut, and I didn't have a lot of friends who were into what I was into. So it was kind of just me sitting around making music by myself.
Right.
And I had to do everything to have what I wanted to hear, and moved to California and found a lot more like-minded people, and then touring over the years, met more people who, are into what I'm into, and everything just kind of evolved organically.
So drums is that kind of your main, if you had to call yourself one, would you be a drummer first?
I wouldn't say it's the main thing. It's definitely probably the thing I am legitimately the best at.
Okay.
Like I'm not a great guitar player, but I can write things I'm happy with and keep up with whoever I'm playing with. But I think I can write with what I've got,
Yeah, for sure. Because I was really surprised when I heard the vocals and everything too. I was like, man, those are solid vocals that on the Disgrace album that I checked out. So it's just cool, man. It's cool to hear each thing I've listened to. I'm surprised that at first I thought it was going to be drums on each one. So it was really cool to hear. Yeah, that level of talent, on each one. It's like you could just basically do your own band if you wanted to.
So maybe I could at this point. I feel like I need some people to check me on things,
Right.
And it kind of helps shape the song. If half the time, if it were up to me, every part would be a nice part.
Right. Yeah, I hear you, man.
Maybe that doesn't work. Yeah.
Well, so with with all these different genres that you kind of have throughout your different bands and everything, you got Twitching Tongues, which I don't even know how to classify. You've got Nails, which is just this extreme mix of everything, hardcore. Where did your roots come from with heavy music? Where'd you start with everything?
Well, grew up in Connecticut, so it was a lot of New England hardcore to start with, and some of the first stuff I ever got was like Sepultura, Chaos AD, my older brother bought for me, and stuff along that lines. A lot of Pantera when I was younger, and like went and saw Pantera when I was in like 5th grade.
Nice.
And stuff like that. There was a band from Massachusetts called Grimlock that really just struck a chord with me. That's really unknown band, kind of,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm probably the biggest fan they have, and I think they know that at this point. But yeah, like everything kind of came from that little world, kind of like early metallic hardcore stuff like that.
Right.
And then I kind of got into metal from that. But yeah, that's pretty much the zone.
Okay. I'm always jealous, man, when people say they started off with metal in, like, you know, 5th grade or whatever. I was over there with, you know, Backstreet Boys and NSYNC. It took me a few more years until I made my way to the heavier stuff.
I think my dad had tapes laying around all the time, and it was like Black Sabbath and like some Zeppelin stuff, and it just, like, every time I would hear like a palm mute, it would like blow my mind. And I just wanted that as much as I could get it and find the ultimate forms of it. And I have.
Right.
It's everywhere.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So with your studio and everything that you've got going there, how did that come about? When did you start that? And it seems like it's taken off quite a bit lately.
It kind of all comes from the same thing, just because I, like, my dad had some basic gear laying around, and I didn't have a lot of friends that wanted to play the exact same stuff, so I would just sit, like, write and record music with whatever I had. Probably started off doing it very incorrectly, and have kind of just learned how to do it by myself over time. And kind of whenever I noticed something that was kind of subpar, I would look into ways of how to fix it without really, like, I took a recording class one time and I got like a C. Just like, I'm not technically proficient, but I'm learning. I'm still learning over time. But as long as it sounds good to me, then I think that's all that really matters. And I've been told that by other engineers too. So
yeah,
I think I'm on the right track.
Oh yeah, I mean, the stuff you've been putting out, it's killer. I mean, I didn't realize that you know, I had seen your name thrown around before, but I didn't realize all the albums that you had worked on with, you know, I guess, you know, name a couple that you're maybe most proud of for people who don't know about it that they could check out.
I've done most of Shibalba's LPs. I've done, I do all the God's Hate recordings. I've done every non-album Nails recording.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of hardcore bands from California: Forced Order, God's Hate, Downpressor, Minus, Soul Search. I just did the Poison Headache record for Metal Blade.
That's right, yeah. I had talked to Phil back. I think that's when I first heard about your studio. We were talking, and he mentioned working with you on some parts of that album, which turned out great.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I really like the way that record sounds. I worked with this Italian band called Hierophant a few times. Used to do a lot of mastering, but I think I do better at mixing, so I try not to do that anymore.
Right.
I've done all of the Twisting Tongue stuff. Lots of little things over the years that I kind of lost track at this point. I'd have to actually look at, like, my Discogs at this point.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Rotting Out, that was another cool one I saw on there that I was a pretty big fan of.
I like that one a lot.
So
there's two of those, actually.
Yeah, right. When you started it and kind of now and all that, did you have any producers that you kind of looked up to when you started it that you kind of, you know, or some favorites even now that you kind of hold in high regard?
Yeah, I really like Scott Burns. He over the years, you could tell when he was kind of phoning it in. No offense, Scott, if you ever listen to this, but like his great records sound just crushing to me.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
Like Arise, all the Obituary records, and like he kind of he was the first one to really understand where the guitars should sit in a mix, I think, like with the drum, like the guitars and the drums, because you could tell when it just wasn't right and wasn't hitting. And like there's some thrash metal records that sound good, but like as soon as death metal bands and thrash metal bands started recording with him, it was just way more brutal to me. And I also really like Colin Richardson, who is from kind of the same era, but actually he still does records.
Mm-hmm.
I think he produced that recent Carcass record, but he quit in the middle of it or something weird, and he didn't end up mixing it. That's right. But it still does sound really good, and you can hear his touch on it. And he did all the like Napalm Death, Machine Head, fucking Brutal Truth, Extreme Conditions. That record sounds amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Certain things like that. Steve Evitz is great. I actually had him mix something for me recently, and it was a nice little notch in the belt, to have him do something.
Oh,
and then
sure.
obviously Kurt Blue is like the gear master, and I think he's going to make great sounding records until he croaks, honestly.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite. Everybody gets on the podcast, they make fun of me because pretty much anytime there's a Blue record that comes out, I'm usually playing it or recommending it. I just love the sound he gets.
Yeah, he's unbelievable. He really understands like what heavy should be. To me, like current metal to me just sounds like overproduced garbage half the time, and everything's digital. Drums end up being fucking digital at the end, and that's just like, I don't want to hear the computer. I don't want to hear the hard drive. Like not really, but and like I want to hear the scream of an amp, and he really gets that. I want a drum set to sound like a drum set, not 10 separate things mixed together.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I look at it just like another Scott Burns, like as far as he gets it, he knows how to make those raw, intense sounds and just bring it to the forefront, but you can still hear everything clearly, so yeah, I totally agree. And honestly, that's kind of what I was liking about some of your stuff too, is like it doesn't have the overcompressed stuff. It doesn't sound digital. It sounds natural and raw, but good, and like you said, those Chihuahua records and all that, is a kind of a good example to what I heard, or the Twitching Tongues, you can hear that, man. I don't know. So what do you kind of identify with as a producer? What kind of sound do you go for?
I guess I don't have a ton of like analog gear, but I strive for that sound where it just sounds kind of like almost like a band in a room, but not quite, because honestly, if you're standing and a band's playing in a room, it doesn't sound good unless there's some kind of microphone situation going on. But like that to me is just what a record should be. I don't think it should just be this like over processed. It shouldn't sound like everything is recorded one at a time, even though maybe it is. And like when you hear things that are just super perfect, it just doesn't work for me. I want to hear humanity in the record. Yeah,
100%, man. I guess jumping into some Nails now, because that's kind of where I learned about you, all your other bands from Nails. It was my favorite record that came out last year. Obviously amongst a lot of other people's. How does that feel, man? Just after having such a amazing year last year, you guys feeling pretty good at this point?
Oh yeah, I mean it's the easiest band that I do. Everything is just smooth, and like having that kind of reception was really unbelievable, and definitely a milestone for me, just playing mosh parts. Right, man. In different ways.
How did Nails come together in the beginning? I don't know if I actually know how you guys started.
Well, Todd kind of had this vision in his head from like 2007 or so, and we actually talked around then, and he wanted to like make it real, and he lived in Oxnard and I live in LA, and it was just easier for him to have like a local guy, and this dude Tom Hogan played drums on the actual first recording, and they played like 10 or so shows, and then he asked if I would play drums because he wanted to get kind of a little tighter. Tom is awesome though. He played drums in a band called 108, and he's done some other stuff, but I think Todd wanted to get a little more technical, and we did some demoing, and it just kind of, and then like what became Unsilent Death happened, and yeah, it just kind of, it was easy even then too. It was just natural. We just wrote songs and added more blasting to his like kind of Japanese punk vision for the band, and it just kind of happened. And because it like more mosh parts ended up happening because I was there, and every time he would play one, I'd be like, oh man, that should happen. And
right.
Over time, it just became a thing where it's like, okay, let's go as fast and as crazy as we can then. And that was it. We just strived to be the most extreme but simple and abrasive thing we could.
Yeah, I was going to kind of ask off that a little bit, because to my ears, like with the Unsilent Death, you guys started somewhere maybe somewhat rooted in hardcore, even though it was more of a, the extreme end of hardcore, and then the progression and the path kind of to You'll Never Be One of Us, it just seems to get a little bit more extreme, and maybe, I don't know if a little bit more metal is the right word, but more blasting, like you said, more double bass, all that kind of stuff. Was that something that you a conscious thing you guys wanted to do, was go in that direction, or was it just a matter of just upping it every time?
The only reason to write a record is to write one better than the one before it, and it was just kind of the natural thing that we had to do. That it was like, if we were going to top the extremity, we had to be more extreme every time, and then what happened. I guess it was conscious in that way, but it wasn't like, oh, metal people like us, we need to go more metal or something like that. You know, it was just what needed to happen.
Right. It's cool though, because it seems like it bridges a gap, kind of like between like the hardcore metal kind of crowd. Kind of like a full of hell band or like Hatebreed used to do. It just seems like people are grabbing onto it from different genres.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
I agree.
And like with all that extra double bass and everything, it seemed like you upped your game, or maybe you didn't up your game, but everything just seemed faster and even tighter and just more blasting throughout it. Is that just, did you progress as a drummer, or did you just want to throw everything at it?
I think I'd say I progressed as a drummer. And I think actually Kurt, when we did the first one, he kind of noted that maybe I needed to hit a little harder. And then we did the second record with him, Band All Life, and he was like, "Oh, seems like you're hitting harder." and then I kind of like, I would say at Band All Life, I wouldn't call it sloppy, but I'd say my drumming's a little loose on it. And listening to that over time, I was like, okay, I don't want that anymore. So I took the hard hitting and got rid of the looseness, and then and the songs just kind of were the songs. I played what needed to be played. It wasn't like I need to be more technical or anything. I was just like, okay, well, this is how it goes, and I need to be able to play it, and that was it.
Right. I mean, how important is the drums, like, or where do they fit in the writing process? Because I mean, Nails is a pretty percussive kind of band where it's just like it's about the rhythm and the heavy hitting parts and all that. Where do those drums fall into place, like with the writing and everything?
I would say that when Todd brings a riff in at this point, he's got some idea of what to do. And maybe I'll have another 30-40% of ideas to toss on top of that. And then, like when we're writing a song structurally, like we'll kind of know, okay, well, there's going to be a fast part here and a fast part here. We need to go mid-tempo here. And I guess it's really not the drumming so much as the songs. I don't know how to put it to words really. We just kind of know what needs to go where. And it's really more about the guitars. I would say it's like what the guitars are doing. I need to work to that more than anything, because bottom line is metal is guitar music, and so what he's playing is what people are really paying attention to, unless there's a bunch of drummers in the crowd going, "Oh, whoa," or something like that. But there's not a lot of drummers in the world.
No, I hear you, man. I'll tell you though, it does stand out, and like especially I really noticed on the last album, you could just tell, man, it was more of a highlight to me. But I guess I gotta ask too, just man, with the like you said, with the mosh parts and all that. I don't know how much influence you have with all that, but I feel like Nails just, I don't want to say nails it, but gets it right with the mosh parts, man. I mean, some bands, it comes in and it's your typical breakdown, or it doesn't have a lot of life to it. But I feel like every time it comes in on any Nails record, it's just like the right moment, the right intensity. How do you guys manage to nail those breakdowns so well?
I think it just comes from what we like, and what we're influenced by, like Napalm Death or Brutal Truth or something. It wouldn't have this, like, if they were going to go into a mosh part, it wouldn't be this like stock like build up hi-hat, or like, oh, here's the riff first, and then okay, now here's the riff with the whole band, and I think that half the time it's not even the riff, but there's like a really strong key change that makes the riff hit that much harder. And we also don't overplay things, like the mosh parts are short and you want to hear it again, like right after you hear it, instead of like just the same open one mosh part or something like that.
Yeah,
there's a lot of factors that go into it, but it's definitely, like I think that restraint is a lot of it for sure, and that like you kind of deprive them of it, and then when it hits, it's just like, damn. there it is.
Yeah, man, for sure. So I know you guys just put that one out last year. Do you guys mess around with any writing yet for the next one or anything?
Yeah, we've got some ideas floating around, and we have Leon from Murder Construct, Terrorizer, and Intronaut now playing second guitar, and he's already floating ideas in, and
That's awesome.
I think something will happen, but it definitely takes us longer than the average band to write a shorter record than the average band. But it's not because we're lazy, it's I think because we're meticulous, even though the songs are a minute long.
Right. Well, whatever you're doing is obviously working, man. I just hope it doesn't take 3 years again, because definitely we'll be ready for something new.
Yeah, I think we're gonna, we wanted to pump something out faster then too, because Nuclear Blast was on board like 2 years before we ended up having a record.
Okay.
And we were excited to get something out, now this has a lot of push, and I think we need to follow up quick, but we'll see. It's never about deadlines for us. It's about, is the record ready? Right.
Yeah, for sure, man. You can hear that.
Because we're not the band that needs to tour, where we play when there's a call for it.
Right. Well, before we finish, I wanted to touch on your other band, Twitching Tongues, too. It's a newer thing for me. I heard you guys, well, I shouldn't say that. I did hear it when Disharmony came out, and when it came out, I think it was 2015.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember listening to it because I heard some people talking it up a little bit, and I'll be honest, at the time, I couldn't get into it. I just didn't really understand it, really didn't hit at the right moment or something, and then we get
that a lot.
Yeah, but then, a couple weeks ago, for whatever reason, I don't even know why, I hit play on it again, and this time I couldn't stop it. I went and listened to everything you guys put out before that, listened to it a bunch of times, and it's like it was a total 180. And then I was just looking around online. It just kind of seems like that's with a lot of people. Either it's a love or hate kind of thing. It's such a unique sound. Do you hear that a lot too?
Yeah, it's been kind of following us since the beginning. And there's not really a middle ground. It's like people either hate it and they want to talk about how much they hate it, or people love it and they want to talk about how much they love it. And I've never heard, this is just okay.
Right.
Dude, this is fucking awful. This is the worst thing I ever heard. Why does this person think he can sing? Or, oh my God, this is amazing. How am I hearing this for the first time? And I don't know what to do with that or what to think of it, but we like writing the songs, and we're just going to keep doing it.
Well, I think it's awesome. It shows that you guys are doing something different. And, whenever you have a band like that, it's usually bands that kind of do something special. You people who love it or hate it, and it's cool, man. And your brother Colin's vocals, they're wild, they're different, but to me, that's what drew me in this time. It was, on top of everything else that's great about it, but it's definitely the unique factor that kind of gives it that special twist. How did it what's the goal with this band? Like, what were you guys trying to do with the sound and all that?
Well, when we started in like 2010, it was just kind of like, well, let's start a band where it's me and you, kind of, that's the backbone, so that, we could just always be a band. That was the first thing. And then the second thing was like, well, let's see if you can sing, because we didn't really know, and we just did the demo, just to see if we could, and we ended up really having a great time. And the main influences were like a lot of like New England stuff with clean vocals, like Sam Black Church and Only Living Witness and stuff like that, but blended with like Typo Negative and other kind of heavy but melodic things, but not in like a happy melodic way.
Mm-hmm.
And over time we just kind of got heavier and heavier, and it made it have more of a twist, because the vocals got more melodic and the riffs kind of got harder, and it was like it just sounded interesting to us to have like this kind of brutal riff with like a sad melody over it or something like that.
Yeah, because it's cool. You guys got the backing of Metal Blade for this. You got Nuclear Blast for Nails. It's got to be feeling pretty good to have two monster metal labels behind you.
We're definitely doing all right, and zero complaints about things.